Okay, good afternoon. We are here today with Stuart Smith from DESE, and he is going to give us some updates. So, Stuart, I'm going to turn it over to you and just get your slideshow ready.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Stuart Smith, Assistant Director of Curriculum at DESE. Just a few highlights, things that are going on. I'll roll right into it. We have our letters training. So registration for our August cohorts is coming up. It's closed, but our October cohorts is shutting down on this Friday. There's the QR code there. Just scan it. You can get signed up. But deadline is this Friday, and anybody's still trying to get anybody registered for letters training in this cohort. Get on your horse. That's a big thing. The letters training. I mean, we're trying to train 15,000 teachers over the course of the next couple years, especially K through 5, pre-K even through 5. So if anybody hasn't, or you need more information, scan that or contact Heather Knight.
Awesome.
We have these content meetings as well. I didn't put the 6 through 12 on here because I have a wait list that's about 40 plus. And so I need to reach out to folks who are on the wait list first. But our K5, we still have some room. So if you're interested, you have any K5 educators, these content meetings are facilitated by Missouri Reading Institute and Missouri Writing Projects Networks. And for the first half, either MRI or MWPN will give their PD, and then lunchtime, and then the second half they'll just flip flop so that everybody kind of receives the same stuff. But we still have room. They're in Jeff City, but we're also trying to make them virtual. So if you want to participate, you don't necessarily have to be there in person to participate. So you can scan that QR code. It'll take you to a WooFoo, which is all the fun stuff we have going on, which is just a survey to say what your availability is and which way you'd like to participate. So we're going to try to do a hybrid model. We'll see how it goes. Bear with us. It'll be the first time we try to do one of these content meetings over both in-person and virtual platforms. So if you have anybody interested, pre-K through 5, scan the QR code, get signed up, or if you have any questions. Okay. Now, here's another thing we're doing are these literacy showcases facilitated by our regional professional development centers. So we're going to have them the third Wednesday of every month from 3:30 to 4:30, and they're going to be virtual. That QR code there is just the virtual link to the meeting on the day of. So it'll be active the day of. If you try to scan it now, you'll be sitting in a waiting room for all the days until the meeting. But the first session that they're doing, and this is Cindy Rogers is going to be hosting this, but this is a repeat of what we did at the Literacy Summit in July, where we had a panel of teachers who have already gone through letters training. And they are going to be there to, one, start with kind of their stories, but mostly they are going to be there to answer any questions that any educators have about what that looks like. So if you're an administrator and you're curious what your teachers are going to go through, or if you're an administrator and want to go through the training yourself, or if you're a teacher and you're going through, this panel was extremely knowledgeable and positive about their experience. And I think that's kind of what they're trying to do, is get the word out that yes, it is demanding. It's like a graduate school. It's like a graduate course. But that in the end, I think they found it very worthwhile and impactful in how they were teaching and how they were thinking about their students and what their students needed. And so that is this September 21st, 3:30 to 4:30, and it will just be available to anyone. No registration required. Just click on the QR code there and you'll be able to get in. There's the schedule upcoming as well, facilitated by each of our wonderful RPDCs, and we'll have a schedule through the school year. So I will send you an update with that. But for now, you can check the DESE curriculum PD calendar via that QR code. QR codes for everything these days. And they will be on there under the literacy section. That's cool. We can go to the next one. Another highlight, I'm on the committee for the Powerful Learning Conference, which is upcoming. This is probably Missouri's premier conference for our educators down at Tantera, January 30th and 31st. And we are still looking for proposals. If anybody knows of or has great things that are going on in their classrooms, They can again scan that QR code. The deadline, however, is upcoming. I think we're inside the 2-week window. So later in September is that deadline. There's a chance that it will be extended just based on how many proposals we get in the next couple of weeks. But if you need more information or you're interested in presenting at the Powerful Learning Conference, just check that QR code or reach out to Christine Noby from DESE. Another kind of literary endeavor that's going on and has been opened up in the state right now is this Poetry Out Loud. And so this is a collaboration between DESE and Missouri Arts Council, where we brought this program into high schools in Missouri for the last 18 or so years. Last year, about 1,300 students that participated, and it is a recitation contest. So students are asked to memorize poems and then have a school-based competition. And then the winner of that goes to a regional competition. And then the winner of that goes to a state competition. And that will be in March, the actual state finals. And then the winner of that will go to a national competition in Washington, D.C. Very cool. Just trying to get poetry back in the classrooms, or a little more exposure to poetry. Again, another QR code if you're interested and you want more information or you want to register for the program itself. A couple links there, poetryoutloud.org and Missouri Arts Council. .org/poetry out loud. Virginia Sanders is the contact for that. We're just trying to up some participation, get the word out about this program too.
Awesome.
Also, again, what we were talking about before, but we are still, I think, always will be looking for educators who are interested in doing some test writing and test review work. I think one thing people forget is that all of our MAP tests are written by Missouri educators. So we partner with DRC and NWEA, or these big companies, but then they help facilitate all of this process. So this QR code here is kind of a survey of interest, like a lot of questions about what your background is, what you've taught before, if you've done item writing and content bias review before. But then also what you're interested in doing. So you may be an English person, but you're interested in doing science, or you have a background in math, but you really want to know more about the English side of things. I think they're kind of open to educators participating in both the ways that they're comfortable with and ways that they want to learn about. Personally, from my experience, this has been an awesome professional development session, and educators get paid. Usually it's $250 a day plus hotel room plus meal, wherever the item writing workshop is happening. So if anybody's interested or wants to know more, scan the QR code and you will be plugged into the system.
And I can attest to how great the experience is, and that you were overfed. I will also say that. There is food
Yeah, I mean,
at those meetings.
yeah, usually they really want to make people feel comfortable. I mean, the most recent one I was at I think the Renaissance in St. Louis by the airport, and we're on the top floor and we have a great view and it's bright and well lit. People are just sitting there grinding away, like looking at these tests, taking batches, and it seems like, I mean, might be really intense work, but there's a community of people. There's a lot of question answering, and then there's like an in-depth, pretty deep dive into standards, the format and the function of the test, and then actually how you have to write the questions. And I just thought it was so cool. I think we need to figure out a way to get every educator involved in some kind of test or assessment development workshop. I just think it really helps make those connections between the standards and then how you actually do it, especially on assessment. So
Completely
But
agree.
Stuart, let me ask you this. Like, if you're an educator in Missouri that feels like they might not write the best test questions, or maybe they want to learn how to write better test questions, like, is this something for them as well, that they would go
yes,
learn how to do this process, not just for those excellent educators who already know how to do it?
absolutely, yes. And again, where DRC and NWEA and DESE, I think, work really well together is kind of that initial intake training of new people, because there's always new people who become interested. And so don't hesitate, because when you get there, there's a great PD kind of to start it. The training ahead of time will maybe alleviate any concerns you have if you're a first timer, or you're nervous that you might not be good at it. you will get really good just professional development in during the training at the jump, which I think should alleviate those concerns. And then you never know, like you might actually have a real skill or knack for it. But don't hesitate. They're always calling for people. Again, it's all Missouri educators that are involved in this work. So as many people, the whole gamut of experience, I think is really valuable. Don't hesitate. That's what
Well,
I would say.
and the last thing I'll add is on our call this morning, a lot of state leaders were talking about just the influx of people they have as teachers who are not traditional. They're
Mm.
those non-traditional. And so I wonder, is that a possibility too? Because I'm thinking, gosh, what better way if you weren't trained? But is it just those who are certified, or do you think some of their non-traditional teachers could look for those opportunities? That's a
That's a good,
complicated question, but
no,
I
that's
think
a
it's
good
so
question. Yeah.
needed.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. I think it is open. And again, that
Okay.
QR code is share it to people. And I think what DESE in a lot of ways is we're just trying to get more sand in our sandbox, I guess, for lack of a better term. Like when we do the item writing, we try to batch and create as many items as possible so we have like the content ready, and then we can really review and say, well, now, hey, this question is better than this other question, and we have a big enough pool that we don't have to take, we can really see the progression of quality maybe. But I say the same thing is true for educators. Like if you're a first year teacher but you're interested in this, go ahead and sign up. And the more people we have in our pool that we can connect and just get information from, and oh man, you were interested this time, we filled up, but next time, and maybe there's one that's closer to your region. I think the
Right.
upcoming one is in Kansas City, October 10th, and somebody from Cape might, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to Kansas City, but there may be one in Springfield, or there may be one actually closer to Cape. And if you're interested in that, or it's more regionally based where it fits your schedule, I mean, just get in the loop. And then we have your information too. And just the more people, the bigger our network can be, and the more inclusive our network can be, I think it just benefits everybody.
Agreed.
I think that might do it. Yeah. So that's me. That's my email, stuart.smith@dese.mo.gov. Again, Assistant Director of Curriculum, filling in for our ELA and Social Studies directors currently, and trying to just make sure that there's some stewardship of these projects, and we're staying on top of things, but also calling them out. If you know anybody that wants to come work for DESE, there's my shameless plug.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess a couple questions I will ask, just a few. Great information. I love letters. I mean, again, I want to echo, it's intense, but it very much goes with the science of reading, and it's so helpful and amazing that the state is providing that free PD for teachers to really get down and dirty on. And I love how you mentioned even for pre-K, because there are specific ways to be teaching orthographic mapping and all of these things that our kiddos, when the research says 60% learn through systematic phonics, what better way to take advantage of, the data tells us that this is what we need to be trained in. And so I love that the RPDC is offering those. So if they are a district who has questions, jump on that. I did want to ask a little bit about, I know one of the common buzz things that people are asking about is competency-based learning too, that we've kind of been following. There's some work groups. I saw there was a grant that the state got for assessment writing. So a few questions I had about that were, I don't know. So I guess just, I won't ask questions. So maybe I'll make it more complicated. Anything you can share about those two initiatives?
Yeah. Well, I know the grant is big news, and that's very positive. And I
Yeah.
think we're looking at redesigning our second grade assessment. Not trying to speak out of pocket here, but I think that is kind of the especially with 681, looking at redoing the second grade assessment. As far as the competency based, they had their working groups. I know Mike Fulton was helped facilitate those. They had a great workshop groups. They had a lot of they had everything virtually recorded so people could go back and check it out. In terms of movement forward, I know there's a competency-based task force, I believe. I'd have to, don't quote me on the, I know I'm being recorded, but don't quote me on the language on that. But it's in 681, where they're still not investigating, but like really looking into how can we make this feasible in Missouri? What's it look like? How do we get it done? So I think there's still inquiry into what that looks like for us. After the working groups, I think there was a lot of really good feedback. I know there's some, again, just kind of communication with other states who have already kind of implemented this process or looking at it. But I think the timeline for that is still closer to like, especially look at the legislation as Senate Bill 681. I think it's closer to 2024, 25.
That's what I'd
for,
always had in my head, 25 for some reason.
yeah, for a deliverable on that. But I do think that there was a lot of really positive feedback they presented to the board. So go back. There's also like links to the state board meetings where the people who did that focus group work presented, and they presented their findings, and they showed, this is this, and this is where Missouri's at, and what we're interested in. And so there's some good information there too. But in terms of a timeline or a rollout, that's down the ways a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with this,
if there's anything, I would, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go.
No, just just again, like you said before, the push towards the science of reading, I think, is the more immediate, and how people can look at their curriculum or adapting curriculum, or even if it's, you're getting some curriculum to purchase or whatever. The alignment to the science of reading is the commissioner's. I mean, that's kind of priority number one right now, and especially because it's been put into this legislation. So I think competency-based will be part of that. Like, we're trying to develop these literacy skills early, all the stuff that we're trying to do. You need these foundations of reading, writing, speaking, listening. But then from that, the jump into disciplinary literacy, and then the jump into this competency-based, I think you could see some movement. I don't want to get into too much speculation, but just from the legislation as it's going on, I think you could see some pretty cool movement in the future in terms of how we're looking at student assessment and student development through the teacher lens.
Okay. And then I know people are going to have questions about the second grade assessment, but because it scares second grade teachers that they're going to have to give it anyway.
No doubt.
But is there a timeline? So you said this grant money might be revising that. Is there a timeline when that came out? And I'm trying to conjure up what I've heard about it before. It's not going to count toward their MPI. This is more right, that it's like a growth measure, or can you speak?
Yeah, I think that's how it is. I think that's how we're supposed to look at it. And then again, the language of the bill kind of stipulates that there's a test at the beginning and a test at the end.
Because you're looking for growth.
And then in terms of proficiency, I think even the language of the bill is that there's going to be these reading programs. So I think what people need to be more aware of is, so the assessment will happen, but then what do you do with students after they've taken the assessment? And so then you get into the third grade year, and there's going to be another assessment. And then what they're going to have are these like summer reading programs or summer literacy programs, where students who didn't do well on the assessment, whatever it is, whatever it looks like, will then need to attend the summer reading program, and then they'll be reassessed after that. And then the language of the bill is like, well, if students are not proficient at the end of third grade, then there may be some, I don't even know what the right word is, not remediation, but well, definitely intervention. And that's what the summer reading program is supposed to be. So I think for anybody thinking that their students may not do well on the assessment, you got to think about the follow-up of, okay, how are we going to, if it is based on these assessments results, how are we going to make sure that our students get there? And so one of the things that's stipulated in 681 are these summer reading programs. And so to provide
something that schools would need to provide.
Yep. Identify students, and then also provide that intervention for them in the summertime, because then they're supposed to, according to the bill. And again, I don't know when this is like actually coming into effect, 24, 23, are we coming into it? I think there's still some distance between kind of mandated policy and the creation of these things. It's not like it's happening right now. It's just like, okay, we finally got the ball moving.
It's in the works.
It's all in the works. But I think moving forward, just kind of those intervention strategies for literacy, how are you helping your students. Obviously, you have your proficient kids, and even like your near proficient. But the students who are really below basic or below proficient, how are you providing opportunities to them for some of this, systematic intervention, which I think the science of reading really emphasizes, is that systematic response. Like, okay, let's see what skills we have, what skills we don't have. And we know, like you said, that these particular strategies are effective. The
Well,
research is there, the evidence is there. We're past the research phase. They've been doing the research, and now we have the evidence of these are the things to focus on when you're working with struggling readers in these early grades.
so this connection with all the letters training could honestly is kind of laying a groundwork when you need to create as a school, this bill passes. Now your teachers are equipped, in my opinion, with systematic phonetic instruction. That's where you
Hmm.
could give them another dose of, just to try to make that connection between the two. That is one of their intervention. Not only do we want to increase tier one, do that the first time, teach it that way the
Right,
first time,
right.
but for those kids who don't get it, for districts who are wondering, should I do letters? I feel like if this bill does come into place and you're supposed to be doing a summer camp, is only going to be as good as the instruction that you're laying down for kids, and to have a systematic way to do that, sounds like letters could be a great, so it connects
Yeah,
with the
totally. I
data
mean,
there.
all these things, and I think we kind of saw that the legislation was going to be passed, and so maybe a month or two ahead of it being passed, and so we were kind of trying to get our ducks in a row in terms of planning, and so Heather Knight and the Office of Literacy will be established, and that Letters Initiative, really, the Read Leads Exceed initiative, was kind of our pre-planning of like, okay, well, we need to offer something and figure out how we're going to
To
move
help.
this forward, and that's the big push right now. So,
And you're
you
offering
know,
it for free. So I don't know. I'm just trying to circle back. And
no,
that's the
yeah,
big
totally offer it
why,
for free.
to
But I
make
mean, we're
that
also trying to
connection.
get part of the bill too is about educator quality and preparation. And so we're even working with our higher ed partners right now to change college curriculum to
We're
include.
not prepared. Yes.
I mean, it's interesting that not all teachers are teachers of reading or think that they're teachers of reading, but that's the paradigm shift that's happening now. Is like, yeah, all teachers are teachers of reading, all teachers are literacy teachers. And so whether you're grade level or you're middle school or high school, it's, you within your content area, if you're one of those middle or high school teachers, there are literacy strategies specific to your content area. And so how cool is it to then think about the lens with which you look at your discipline, but then also make connections to the lenses of other disciplines with teachers within your building, and then to find commonalities and find ways that you can share language and can reinforce a lot of these literacy skills. And so I think just, starting in our higher ed programs and making sure that teachers are coming out of those, prepared to be a reading teacher. Like, there are certain strategies in the science of the brain and all these things, the science of reading, and then, the science of literacy, I think, are kind of similar, but all of those ways to teach reading, writing, speaking, and listening that are so fundamental, you got to have the tools in your toolbox. But if you just are never even exposed to some of that in your education prep or even in the classroom, you never, it's not going to become part of who you are, your identity as a teacher. So really, it's a big push on all fields and all levels to kind of boost up educator knowledge and preparation and background of like, okay, well, I know this stuff, and we'll see how it actually works when I get to the classroom. But maybe you can adapt it or reconfigure it. But yeah, that's the movement, and it's happening for sure.
Well, I love to hear that the State Department is collaborating with higher ed too. That's great. Well, we want to thank you so much for your time today. And everybody, I should have known not to do an afternoon call. Everybody's running around crazy after lunch duty, but we will record this and post it up. And just a reminder, when I post this, I'll put your email and contact information. So if they
Yeah,
have questions, they can contact you.
please do. One thing that also I'm doing, just so people know, I got invited by some Northeast leadership to come up and speak at one of their kind of meetings in early October. And they really just wanted, I gave a presentation at the administrators conference with Heather on the science of reading. And so they just asked me to come up and basically just give the same presentation over. And anybody that's interested, or you need any kind of background, or you want more information about anything, just get in touch, and I'm happy to come visit, provide slides, whatever folks need. It's kind of cool to be in my position as the assistant director of curriculum because it's so wide open. So really, whatever content area it is, whatever grade level it is, I can hopefully be a contact point for some folks. So please feel free to reach out, no doubt.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stuart.
You're welcome. So you want to do same time next month?